Hello, everybody. Welcome to Highground, episode 9 now. I was away last week. I'm back this week. This time, Newbeat is gone. He's gone off to the east side of Canada, which is actually where our fair Tikatee is from. So I'm joined here by Tikatee. Where are you
going
from?
to my old backyard. I was born and raised in Antigonish, Nova Scotia, home of Saint X, which is probably our biggest landmark, but also my uncle's Wong's restaurant, which went out of business, no longer exists, but it was there when I was growing up. And yeah, it's no Hawaii like you, Ageless. He's not flying over the seas to go on vacation. But yeah, hope Newbeat's having a good time out there.
Yeah, I did. I was away in Hawaii, but I am back here now. This week we're joined by CaptJack and Artemmys. So they're here sharing. They're in a room together, like it's like a LAN. It's a LAN podcast now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're always the case.
Yeah. So, CaptJack, well-known caster, tournament organizer, internet dad in the Overwatch scene with over 4 years of casting experience, which is a lot. He's been featured in recent events such as the EHE Get Good Season 10, which you probably know Kobe, potentially. Mm-hmm. Various charity tournaments with organizations like Stop Soldier Suicide and the recent EGF High School National Championships at the ESPN Wide World of Sports and Walt Disney World. Whoa.
That was quite a title. Every cast we had to say that. It was great.
Oh my God. Spare time enjoying gaming and living life with his wife, Artemmys, and 2 kids. And we're actually also joined by Artemmys, avid gamer, enjoyer of chaos. Interests include Stranger Things, which we were actually just talking about before the broadcast started, the inclusion of Master of Puppets, which is sick. Studying. It was so good. Studying polytheistic paganism, poning fools in Smite, and baking, which is it's a good array of things. When she's not enjoying time with her kids and husband, she's often acting like an internet mom in various T4 scenes. Although many of her actions may not be publicly known, those that interact with her know she's always there as a shoulder to cry on or a force for inspiration wherever needed, motivating others to be their best selves. So welcome both of you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really happy.
We're so happy you both could join us here. We'd like to start off each time with a segment that we call What's Good. So just like a small positive thing that's happened over the past week or two for you. It's not Overwatch related, or it can be, but it doesn't have to be. Mm-hmm. So let's start with Tikatee. What's good this week?
I mean, it's always hard for me to stray from Overwatch. It feels like it's my whole life now. Everything I do is just Overwatch related. I don't know. I mean, it's good to have the beta back. I've been diving really big into content creation. It's going well. Speaking of Stranger Things, I've caught up on all my shows that I've been watching. So I just recently started. There's this new show on Hulu, The Bear. Have you seen that one?
Oh yeah, I've heard about
that. It's a cooking show, and people online are calling it like the most accurate representation of working as a line cook. So there's tons of swearing, tons of toxicity, and all that kind of stuff.
So it's a horror film.
Oh yeah, it's a very anxiety-inducing show for sure. But I love it. It's got one of my favorite actors in it. It's playing the main character, and yeah, it's been a good time.
Nice.
That's awesome. I started smoking because I was a line cook. It took me 10 years to quit.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe don't watch the show.
That sounds like some PTSD
coming back.
Yeah. So yeah, let's move on to CaptJack. What's good this week?
All right. Whew, man. This week I will. I've been working on kind of similar to Tikatee. My brand for forever has been Overwatch, but I know as a caster, it's not good to keep all your eggs in one basket. So I've been trying to spread out. I've been doing a little bit of Rocket League behind the scenes, and this week will be my first chance casting my wife's favorite game, Smite, which is incredibly intimidating because of how much you have to know about the game. For those of you that don't know, Smite is very similar to League of Legends style, except it's in third person, and it's all about various gods and pantheons that they've kind of brought in. My wife argues that the Arthurian pantheon is a little strain outside of the main line, King Arthur, stuff like that. But it's got, the Greeks, the Roman, any sort of pantheon. So if you like gods and goddesses, that's the thing. So I'll be getting my first chance at that this week. I got some news I can't share because it's super important and I haven't been finalized in it just yet, but definitely an opportunity that I didn't even see coming, which has got me scrambling to update all my stuff so that it's the best that it can be for a couple weeks from now, should everything get locked in. But yeah, other than that, it's been nice. The kids are out of school, just kind of enjoying life with the family. So
that's awesome.
Sounds exciting. Yeah.
What about you, Artemmys? What's good this week with you?
The last couple weeks, I literally have binge watched Stranger Things.
Nice.
And it pushed me.
Yeah. This one, I need you to watch this. It took me 3 days to finish all 4 seasons, and
I've gotten halfway through season 2. I'm also distracted by Dimension 20, making my way through a crown of candy right now. So it's
Excellent.
I don't know, Brennan Lee Mulligan, Stranger Things. I don't know.
For me, I don't know. I was up at 3 a.m. when Volume 2 dropped, and oh yeah, so many emotions about it. Yeah, so that was
literally watching it in our master bathroom off the side of our bedroom because our youngest still sleeps with us, and so she would not go back to. Mommy was nearby.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I'm going potty for 2 seconds. 2.5 hours later, tears streaming down my face. Mom, are you okay? Great. Yeah. So that would be my great thing, your good thing.
It was a good week.
Yeah.
Good week for television. I say all around.
For sure.
I guess let's just dive into it here. We had the London Spitfire clinched. It seems like everyone clinched, but we're going to talk about that later. We're going to talk about London first clinching. They played, I guess, Atlanta.
Yeah. So not only clinched, secured top 4, meaning they get a bottom 4 of the top 8 seed. And I have to mention this because London's my new favorite team this season. They went undefeated in these qualifiers. They went, 4-0, right? 5-0? How many games did they play? I don't even remember how many games they played now, but they went undefeated. They had a relatively easy schedule. I think their hardest matches were Washington and Florida. So not top table teams like the Gladiators, like the Shock or things like that. But they did a good job. They secured the win against Washington. It spurred maybe some controversial reactions from a couple members of the analyst desk.
Right.
But I was hyped to see this win. Yeah. Yeah, this was quite the set. And our friend Custa over on the desk definitely had some thoughts about Washington's performance after that one.
Are we able to pull up that clip here? I think this is one of the best rants I think I've ever seen on an episode of Watchpoint, and we'll be able to let's just watch it. Let's watch this. I'm still not getting angry.
Okay. This game is the embodiment of why coaches matter in Overwatch. We have a team like the London Spitfire who do not have the best players in the world, but they are playing the right players, the right heroes, the right strategy.
Yeah, we got sound
everywhere.
on stream, so
They know their strengths, they know how to put people in. The Washington Justice have no idea how to play Overwatch right now. They have no idea how to play Overwatch 2. They are currently, they keep trying this mag with Krillin on Lucio. They go 0-2 down, okay? I understand you come in with your strategies, we'll move past that. It's the same old trick, but hey, whatever. They put in Kalios, they play the double flex support, and they win Route 66 and New Queen Street. You have won these 2 maps on the back of it. The London Spitfire do not have the answer to what you are playing. You full held them on Route 66. You are doing so much damage. You are allowing Decay and Happy to play to their strengths. Happy is popping off on the Sojourner and the Hanzo. Decay is doing what Decay does best when you give him the space to play the Tracer. And then you're telling me on map 5 against the London Spitfire, you're going to play Rush Mirror against the London Spitfire? You're going to take out your best player in Decay, who carried you single-handedly through New Queen Street to a win, and you're going to take him out on Lijiang Tower to mirror the Rush versus London Spitfire. There needs to be a serious look going into after the mid-season madness, because they are unlikely to qualify at this point. There needs to be a serious look at the coaching staff of the Washington Justice, because they have the talent. I'm going to say it, Mitch is going to get mad. They do have the talent.
In his eyes.
They need to be better. They should be better. And these aren't difficult decisions. These aren't difficult choices. They're making the wrong decision time and time again. They need to find someone who's going to make the right decision.
We can stop that. That's
I 100%.
Look how angry. Oh,
man.
Johnny's living it up right next to him. So yeah, the TLDR of that whole rant is like, so this whole season for a lot of teams, a lot of what we'll say underperforming teams, there's been a few, is like everyone's been going on about how like these teams with the rosters they have should be performing better. And that's kind of been the end of the conversation for the most part, because I mean, also for the most part, people on broadcast don't want to shit on these teams, right? They want to shine them in a good light and all that kind of stuff. As I'm sure you guys know from casting experience, you're not really there to take people down, you're there to lift them up. But Custa just had enough and 100% called out the coaching staff from Washington that they're just fumbling the ball essentially. I think this is primarily coming off the back of them taking out Decay for their map 5 and how much they mirrored London on the Rhine composition. London being synonymous with Rhine like this whole season so far, and Washington taking those matchups. Granted, they did get some good Rhine maps. The maps that London did win in the 3-2 were Oasis, Kings Row, and Lijiang, and I think they played the Rhine comps in all three of those everywhere. So they played to their strengths and they won with their strengths. But the fact that Washington tried to mirror that and got basically obliterated, they got full held on Kings Row, they got 2-0'd on both Koth maps. Like you'd think something would change strategically there. You'd think someone internally would change the structure up, and it's a Rhine comp, right? Like in modern times, like this is not a popular composition anymore. It's not just run forward, swing hammer. There's a lot of things that could theoretically counter a Rhine composition, and swapping out one of your hardest carry, highest skill mechanical demons of the game, Decay, in a clinch situation where you need to win this set to clinch your position in the tournament, led to some heat from Custa, from sure. A little bit of questionable decision making from the coaching staff. As a former coach myself, it's hard for me to like 100% criticize them there, but at the same time, it's very hard to understand what's going on. It is good to remember that from the outside, you never quite know what's going on internally. There could be any number of reasons for the decisions they made, but I think I could safely say I would be making different ones, and I think Custa would agree with that. I think a lot of people are starting to agree with that trend, and I don't know, maybe this will be the flame that Washington needs to start turning things around, but God, that was pretty disappointing to see from them for sure.
It's a big thing where you criticize the play, not the player. So you do see it pretty rarely from either hosts or casters to be like, this person is throwing. So but I don't know if anyone's watched Plat Chat, you've seen the amount of conversations they have about the Washington Justice and just how like perpetually disappointing they are. They're so good. They just shit the bed so bad, just so consistently.
Performance issues.
Yeah.
Performance issues.
Has performance issues. It happens.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's funny. If I remember correctly, I had cast in the last couple of weeks where I had my co-caster was wearing a Washington Justice jersey, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of the Justice because I'm really into pain." I'm like, all right, I grew up in Kansas, and how they were. Although I'm not a sports guy myself, I know that sometimes you gotta love your team through all of it. Sometimes
thick and thin.
Thick and thin, no matter where it goes. But yeah, I think the most surprising part to me so far about Overwatch 2 is just the dynamic shift that has come with the game. Like you said, Tikatee, you cannot play this game the way it used to be played anymore. And those that are figuring that out a lot faster in the scene, whether you be at the Overwatch League or for those that are preparing for contenders, the various teams that are competing in, the various beta tournaments that are going on right now, like the teams that are learning that quickly are going to be the ones that take advantage of that and find themselves at the top a lot sooner than those that are kind of sticking to their roots.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I definitely do sympathize with these teams too, because not only are they completely adjusting to new structure, a lot of these teams have new rosters, there's a completely new game that they're playing on with new heroes and new maps, but also this is now, we're going into different meta cycles. There's been patches in the Overwatch League after just a month and a half of play, and they're still learning the base game, let alone learning how the meta is shifting moving forward and stuff like that. So this is definitely a tough season for these teams, but it's sink or swim, right? And I gotta say, as a newfound London fan, I could not be more thrilled at this result. Seeing them go undefeated, seeing them clinch this spot, seeing them win over Washington in such a crazy way was definitely awesome.
Well, that's what's so nuts is like, so yeah, it's a new game. Everyone's figuring stuff out. You go down 2 maps, and then you come out and absolutely pound on this one composition with these group of players. If you would think that teams would be playing safe, where it's like, okay, we had a plan, we're still figuring out the game, it's a brand new game. We came out here and just kicked the shit out of everyone with this composition. It feels like a ranked game. It feels like a ranked game when you like roll on offense, and then we talk about this all the time.
All our heroes.
You're like, yeah, I think I'm gonna play Doomfist. Have I ever played Doomfist before? No. Now is the time to play Doomfist because
you know what? Sometimes you got to pull the trigger. Sometimes you've been practicing and it may not have shown up. And sometimes you gotta be like, "This is the time.
Yeah, this is it.
I feel called.
It's now."
I must answer that call.
I need to snatch. I need to snatch a loss from the jaws of victory here.
It's almost impressive for sure.
It's unbelievable, and we'll continue on this train a little bit here. Just the amount of C9s that have been going on here.
So I think this is why Atlanta was on your mind earlier, because they had probably one of the most egregious C9s in recent history, at least from this season, I would say, where they lost a clinched team fight in overtime of the 5th map of the 3rd Koth round against Houston Outlaws while they were winning a fight. Like this was an honest to God C9. Like it was one of those situations where they were winning, but then they misplayed objective pressure and then just got off the point and lost. And I feel so bad for like all 4 of Atlanta's members. There were 4 people alive out of a possible 5 who were sitting on the point on Ilios well, and all 4 of them detached from the point simultaneously. It was like Venom's Tracer gets off, the Baptiste and the Lucio are off doing their own things. Baptiste is on the point with a window in front of him, and he like drops LOS pressure for 0.5 seconds before it flips. And of course, it was Pelican on the Echo / Doomfist copy. Who was in that game? Okay, I think it was Pelican. Yeah, he had copied Doomfist, and in the time it took him to cast his ult and come back down, the point had flipped and they lost the map. It was such a heartbreaker. We got some really good screenshots from Atlanta's cams, though, for sure.
All over Twitter.
Oh, yeah, this was a tragedy.
We did see a tweet from McGravy, which I think kind of summed up everything as well. Was the 99% of Overwatch 2 coaching is figuring out who the fuck pushes the payload. And
you know what the best part of that tweet is? He tweeted that a week ago. He tweeted that way before this game. God. And then after that comes out, we get the most crazy C9 in so long. It's like, yeah, I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
This fight went on forever too. And in addition to that, like ramping up to this moment, it was pure chaos, right? Like as all overtime 99 fights go, like team play has left the building and everyone's just taking 1v1 duels, going for initiations and stuff like that on their own. And during this fight, both Venom and Hawk accidentally fall off the map. And Atlanta was still winning this team fight despite both. There goes Venom. He accidentally recalled into the pit. Hawk's about to go next. This fight's going on forever. He punches a Tracer across here, or maybe it wasn't a Tracer, unless it lasts long enough for It was Nero, by the way. Pelicans on Houston. What am I talking about? But Nero on the Echo with the copy is who I was talking about. Hawk's about to punch himself into the pit, and then they make a play that ends the series. It's so outrageous how long this lasted, how strong Atlanta looked for so long during this team fight, and then still just, like you said before, like clinched defeat out of the jaws of victory. Like it's only them in the kill feed, including them jumping off the map. Like what could go wrong? And then
dang, that
also like
look at all those reactions. There it is, right? Just out.
Yeah.
Nope.
So disappointing.
Nope, I'm out of here.
Like, I think we've all had like moments like even just in regular games where it's getting so intense. So, like you're so in it and you're not paying attention. You don't realize how fast that clock just actually goes.
Mm-hmm. Especially going on for as long as it does.
Yeah,
like,
it just goes faster.
The biggest thing I think us as casters are always saying. Like, as soon as it hits overtime, it's like, they better not step 1 foot off that paper, because you know the time they're going to do it is the time that they can't get back to it in time. Yeah. That's all it's going to take. And it just, that hurts. That really hurts when you take it that far. And it's just that one misstep that everyone takes.
And like,
especially when it's a map 5.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It is unfortunate. So yeah, C9s. It's been some pretty loose games lately. One of the things I wanted to bring up, and this is something that I had noticed in some conversations around, I think it was on Reddit, was so I think, has everyone played the beta?
Mm-hmm.
You guys played the beta?
Oh yeah, every day.
I haven't had a chance to play the beta yet, but I've watched Jack play the beta.
So there's the new scoreboard.
Yes.
The scoreboard in the first beta was somehow worse than what we had before. It was unreal. It was like impressively bad, I would say. So they've updated it for the second beta. I think it looks a lot better. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you can now clearly see the ultimate charge of everyone on your team. It doesn't just give you like the meter where you're like, oh, they're kind of at most of the way. It gives you like like I think they're at 90 now. You see like they are at 90, which has been really interesting. One of the DPS changes that we saw for this beta was they don't have the speed boost anymore. But instead, it's been replaced with the ability to hold on to up to 30% of ultimate charge, it's depending on the ultimate points. So certain characters have to get more ultimate points to get their ultimate. Tracer builds ult really quick, things like that. So now when you swap characters, you get to hold on to a certain amount of ultimate points, up to 30% of your ultimate. It's really interesting, I think, especially when you're like, I'm playing someone really slow, but, I want a Tracer to get back to point quickly. If you already have your ultimate, you can just swap to Tracer and you start with 30%, which I think is really interesting, but it does change quite a bit of how things are played. And that was, I think, the intention of Overwatch to begin with, was to have these Overwatch swaps. Where it gets really weird is there's usually one or multiple people on a team that is in charge of ult tracking. This becomes really difficult when someone can swap heroes even multiple times and hold on to up to 30%. So I saw this brought up on Reddit. We see it in, I think it's Valorant, where everyone can see everyone's ult charge. Should Overwatch change to a system where everyone can see everyone's ultimate charge? I'm gonna hand this to CaptJack right away.
Why you gotta throw me to the Crocs already? Oof.
There's no wrong answer.
I mean, there obviously is pros and cons to this, right? Because just because you're able to see the ultimates of the other team does not tell you when they're pulling the trigger on that ultimate. Like, you can try to outthink them as best you can, but eventually, like, they're going to take the opportunity that they feel is best to use it, and it's going to be at the time, if they play it right, they're going to be at the time. It's going to be at the time you're not expecting. Like, that's just the way that it is. by not doing that, it like yes, it makes ult tracking a little bit or a lot of it rather more difficult. Now I haven't seen this particular note yet, so this is a little bit of a surprise to me. Now, is the percentage based off of the percentage of the ultimate that they are coming from? So if they have full ult, then it's 30%, but if it's anything less than that, then it's whatever between 0 and 30 that they get.
It takes the lesser number between either the maximum point value if you have above 30% ultimate, or however many points you have actively. So if you're say two heroes at the same point cost for ultimate, say they both cost like 900, or I guess let's just say 1,000, and you're 30% to your ult. If you switch, you'd be 30% to your ult on the other hero. If you are 50% to your ult, you'd be 30% to your new hero. But if you have a point cost that's higher, like it's 2,000 and you're at 30%, it would only give you, or if you're swapping into a point cost that's higher, you would only get 15%. If you had the 30% on the 1,000 point. So it's kind of confusing, but yeah.
Well, I mean, if that's knowable, then that's studyable. So I would say that it's going to definitely take. You're going to have your best math person on the team really be the one that's keeping track of that, to be completely honest. But I mean, in any game where, at the end of the day, it's just numbers, like that is something that is still well trackable. It's something you can be trained to think about. It's like, okay, if they're switching from Tracer to Ashe, like what is the difference in those ultimates? Is there a difference in that ultimate cost? And what would that look like? If you already have the anticipation that this person has ult and they're swapping, you're like, okay, they're probably already at 30%, or if it's a higher cost, then we have an idea of kind of where they are. So it definitely makes it more difficult. I won't disagree with that. And I'm not saying that, this is the clippable point, putting all the ultimates on the screen, maybe making it more so that the enemy's active ultimates are visible, but maybe you don't have the percentage might be an option.
Like if it's fully charged, it shows, but
yeah, if it's fully charged, it shows you. But if it's not, similar to Bro, where you see it just for like that single second, I'm like, oh, like they're, maybe that's the answer. Honestly, there's so many different ways to go with this. You can look at various different games, like you said. Valorant has the ability to look at your enemy's ult percentage and whatnot. But at the end of the day, like, you can try to metagame them as best as you can and think that when they're going to pop that ultimate, but until they pull the trigger, like, it's always going to be up in the air. So there's
always
lots
for the worst case.
Yeah, it's like if you're always planning for the worst case, eventually it's going to come, and honestly, you're going to do your best to get around it, and you may not be able to. So it leaves a lot to the imagination of which direction Overwatch could go in this matter. But I think at this point where Overwatch is now, it's just a little bit more difficult of a numbers game. So mathematicians, get on it.
Artemmys,
figure out what the strategy is.
Should we be able to see everyone's ults, Artemmys? What do you think? What do you think about that?
I think, well, because in Smite it's a little different. Like, you don't have numbers. Like, it literally looks like a little pyramid next to the characters. So it's kind of like a guessing game.
Well, it's also different in the fact that it is timed ultimate.
Yes, yeah.
So in Smite, it is not based on damage or utility. It is cooldown based. Yes. So similar to cooldowns in Overwatch, it's just way higher of a cooldown. It's like 180 seconds for a majority of high impact like Hades.
It's around 60 seconds.
Really?
Yeah, and then you can buy it.
It's a really long game.
Yeah.
Honestly, comparing
even in MOBAs like Smite,
of Overwatch to like League of Legends or Smite, like it is two different worlds.
I definitely think it would be to be able to see enemy charge, like chart. Definitely in strategy planning, game planning. So.
Well, and to be honest, it doesn't really change a whole lot of strategy. right? Because I mean, if you know that Zenyatta has ult, the Tracer's still going to focus them with Pulse Bomb. Like, it doesn't really change a whole lot of what they're going. Just when do you think they're, do you pull the trigger first or do they? Like, that's what it ends up coming down to. So
yeah.
Yeah,
Thinking about this,
the EMP sound barrier, cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
From like a practicals perspective, in like a coordinated setting, like in the Overwatch League, I don't think this actually changes ult tracking that much. I think it's just anytime you see a DPS swap, you just assume they have 30% off the bat. Like you prep for the worst kind of thing. And the other thing I would say is DPS ults, for the most part, with a few exceptions, with stuff like Genji Blade, they're not the hardest thing to react to as long as you anticipate some level of aggression from the enemy team. The bigger things you need to track are support ultimates that can just cancel out anything you try to do, or tank ultimates that just can wipe your entire team with like a good Earth Shatter or a Zarya grab. If you're not explicitly outplaying those ultimates, you will get punished by them. But DPS ultimates, for the most part, like you could safely assume that DPS always have ultimates and it wouldn't change your play too much. I mean, obviously exceptions like EMP, Genji Blade, and stuff like that, like these team wipe ultimates. But I don't know. I don't see this being like that impactful. But I wholeheartedly disagree with the comparison to Valorant in like the economy thing between rounds. I think that's a complete false equivalency. I think it is a lot closer to Smite, actually, where it basically is a cooldown. And just like in MOBAs, how you can buy items that accelerate your cooldown timers, Overwatch doing damage accelerates your cooldown timers. Yeah, exactly. So I think that is part of the game, and part of the skill is anticipating those things.
I think you can see ultimates in Valorant though. I haven't played in a few weeks.
That's what I'm saying. But like, it's also easily known what charges your ultimate in Valorant. If you get a kill, you'd get 1 point. If you die, you get 1 point.
Right.
Done.
That's true. Yeah. Fair enough. So it's a little bit easier math to begin with. Okay. Yep. That's fair enough.
I guess there's also like the orbs you pick up in Valorant. I forgot about, but it's a lot more linear of a progression. And it's about the same as like spending money in Valorant, which is also public info. And I guess it would be like equivalent to the items you buy in a MOBA, or in Overwatch, what heroes you're picking, which is all public information.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Sweet. All right. I like that. So it seems like no, we're not going to show.
I think it's dumb. I think it's a bad change, personally.
We have decided that we're not going to show.
Our opinion matters so much to what's actually going to happen.
Yeah. We know you're watching Blizzard. We understand that everyone at Blizzard is watching. The entire Team 4 tunes in every week. So they know now. Other stuff about the new beta. Is there anything that anyone's missing from Overwatch 1? Let's start with Artemmys, or let's start with Tikatee. Tikatee's got a good reaction right away.
I was gonna say to CaptJack, because this is your first time playing the beta, right? Because you play on console, and this was the first time you had access.
Well, no, I was able to get in on the beta on. So I was able to play a little bit of it. Yes, I have. Oh, well, other than how incredibly buggy it is, I don't know if anyone else has dealt with this on PC. I didn't have this experience on the PC version myself, but console shuts down all the time. Like, I get to the end of a game and it's like, and just like immediate freeze. You got to restart it, and I'm like,
yeah,
okay, it's console. I'm used to the kind of thing, but. For the most part, everything seems, obviously you see the glitches and whatnot that have been all over Twitter from PC and console. But I think the biggest thing that I've kind of noticed with this particular beta is that despite the amount of what's the word I'm looking for, like influence in saying like, hey, now we have the console. I don't know that many people that have been able to get in without buying the Founders Pack. And so that's the one thing that I'm wondering about. Like, is there an even distribution of who has access to this beta? Because I'm going to be honest with you, as a console guy, and I've been preaching this for a couple of years now, it really seems like console gets the short end of the stick when it comes to proper updates. I haven't been able to easily talk in Overwatch game chat for about 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is buggy as heck. Trying to, is constantly like on Reddit, various Xbox threads, trying to figure out how to work things around. Oh, you have to. If you have a wireless mic, you got to disconnect it. If you have a wired mic, you have to like switch profile and stuff like that. So, like for me, that's the unfortunate part, because with all that extra maintenance that console players have, like it's already bad enough that we know that we have to switch to PC if we want to play at the higher tiers of like Overwatch. But like we can't even just enjoy the base game without like having those extra steps involved. It's frustrating. So if anything, I would love to see this time around. And of course, I'm definitely on the fence, getting into the whole Microsoft and whatnot. But ideally, Microsoft property with Xbox, ideally, hopefully that arena. But
yeah,
only time will tell what actually happens with that. But beta wise, in the gameplay and like interacting with folks, it has been so much fun. Like I know that it's something that we're going to talk about a little later. Junker Queen, oh, I love playing Junker Queen free for all, because I've said this on Twitter, it takes me back to Black Ops 2 Call of Duty Sticks and Stones, where you're literally just chucking knives at each other, trying to pick off kills when you can. It has brought a whole new life to the game that I really enjoy. And for the most part, I feel like in competitive, we have not seen, at least at the lower levels, that shift yet that we're seeing at the higher ranks that kind of have to make that shift quickly. It seems that everyone is still able to enjoy, to a certain extent, the heroes that they like playing. I played the gold plat arena, so it's always chaos regardless. Everyone's still enjoying the compositions that they enjoy playing, even with one last tank, whether it be a double sniper, whether you go to main support, to flex support, whatever. It hasn't seemed to have shifted as much at the lower levels as it seems at the higher levels, which I think is something that for the primary base of players in that range is going to make a huge difference, especially when it comes to competitive. Because if you don't have to shift that much, despite the fact that it's a new game, it's still going to hopefully make it enjoyable, just enough different for them to be able to kind of get back into it if they're an old fan, or just get into it if they're a new one.
I do wonder, we talked about console getting kind of left behind a little bit as far as some of the updates go. I know a lot of people, started playing, video games in general, but also Overwatch especially on console, and then made the move to PC. So just being like, yeah, kind of like, get fucked, you should buy a PC. it's like, if they want to grow the game, I feel like I moved to PC. I know a lot of our friends have moved to PC, but if someone like buys the game and it's like not all those features are there on a 6-year-old game, you're like, do I want to move to PC on this? Like, providing those quality of life things, I think is definitely a big part of. I think console is a big part of growing Overwatch as a game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's one of the big things about it as well, is that quality on PC, because that's where the focus is. Like that's where all the pros play. That's where Path to Pro is. Even though it's opened up to console, I mean, you could take a handful of players that maybe had signed up for Open Division, and I'm gonna take a wild guess, probably none of them on to the top 32 to make it onto contenders. Not saying that it didn't happen, but more than likely it probably didn't happen. Just because of the differences in how the games are played. But no, I totally agree with you. Like, why shoot yourself in the foot to not to not make sure that everybody can play and enjoy the game as equally as possible, especially when you're in this position that the game has gone through a drought, and it makes it that much worse for your console players without the new content. Like, I'm sure if you looked at like PC, like Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, although who plays on Switch, I have honestly no idea. No, I mean
fun.
Play Overwatch on Switch, not play other games on Switch. But Switch, I just meant Overwatch specifically. Like, you would probably see a much more drastic drop off for console gamers during kind of this 2-year drought, where honestly, with everything else that was going on, those would have been easy things to focus on and fix and kind of invigorate that player base to continue playing during the drought than just ignoring all that. Because I can't tell you how many things I Battle.net, threads of, still having mic issues after a year, still having connection issues. Oh, there's nothing we can do about it. And it's like, but don't you have a relationship with the companies you give the game to? Like, even if you can't do something about it, like, that's still a conversation you can have with them, right? Because it shouldn't be our job to connect the two, kind of thing. So
absolutely.
It's it's something that I see all too often that are definitely focused on PC. And although it is true, the amount of control and the amount of skill to play on PC is a vast gap. I mean, you look at tier 4 orgs like CGL, where players have grown up in console and play at the high levels of console Overwatch, and it's still just as exciting as watching like those tier 3 open division matches. Like, maybe not all the drastic like Widow headshots or whatnot, but it's still enjoyable. It's still a lot of fun, and it still has a lot of support. So I would love to see more companies that have those console sides instead of keeping them to the side and forcing them, like, if you want to go pro, you have to go to PC. Opening up kind of a side avenue for players on those games to, even if they're not playing in like their own like big Overwatch League, just providing a console version to a certain scope that people can enjoy.
It does feel like they've skipped console and went like straight to mobile. Like there's like there's like PUBG mobile tournaments. There's like Apex mobile tournaments. There's a ton of money in these things. It's really interesting.
Do you know why that is? I actually know a decent amount about the mobile esports market. There was a time I was competing for a slot on a mobile esports Overwatch team. Their only other teams were like Clash of Clans and like something else. Anyway, this was like back when Overwatch launched. But there's way more people with access to a smartphone than to a gaming PC or even a console. And this is especially true in China, in India, in billion person city centers and people, where it's like you don't have the funding, the personal finances, or the accessibility to high-speed internet connections, whatever it is that online gaming requires. That's so mainstream for us, obviously. Even like the console PC market are pretty much the same accessibility at this point. But for other places around the world, there's so many more eyes on it, and therefore there's so much more money in it. And that's why you're seeing these mobile developers like really cash out in games like PUBG Mobile is one of the most lucrative esports in the world. When's the last time anyone's talked about PUBG Mobile? Like,
PUBG?
Or PUBG in general, like there's huge tournaments in China and stuff like.
Yeah, even Fortnite, I feel like, but yeah, it's wild seeing it. So that actually makes sense. So that there's a level of accessibility that kind of adds to that. Is there anything that you miss about Overwatch 1, Tikatee?
Oh, there's tons, but that doesn't make me any less excited for the Overwatch 2 beta. I think the biggest part that's missing, well, one is the player base, but two is like there's a little bit of like depth that is lost when you simplify the game down to 5 versus 5. When some of these new maps that are introduced, this might be a tinfoil hat theory, but I think they're kind of dumbing down maps as well. In addition to just the general macro play, some of the new maps I've not been a fan of, but that might be intentional and stuff like that. That being said, playing the game and like when I play the game, it's very much a casual perspective. I'm not thinking about high level stuff. I'm locking Junker Queen and running it down every game. So it's not like I'm thinking any higher than that. And I'm having fun. The game is fun. I'm having a blast playing it. I really wish Blizzard's marketing strategy was more modern. Like, I really wish they didn't still like gate the beta access behind a $40 paywall and then not release numbers of how many people they're inviting. I wish they didn't do the same thing to console. Like, I would be very curious to know what that breakdown is, like how they're inviting people. Because a real developer, or I guess like, I guess this is more common in like indie developers, actually.
Company Activision,
yeah.
You know.
But in companies that actually use betas to test their games and actually care about like growing the player base and not about money at the end of the day. I mean, everyone cares about money, but to a lesser degree at least, they use betas to limit test. And we already had a beta with open access. And to take that away and now restrict it behind a $40 paywall, it's such a bad taste in the mouth to see that. And I can imagine it's even worse for console. This is your first time accessing a console, and you're basically being told you have to buy in or you only get a week of playtime.
Which is you can get a week.
Which is unbelievable. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Like days before the beta is going down, because I think they said like the beta ends what, like the 22nd, and they said the last day that they're adding people is like the 16th.
Yeah.
So you don't even. Some people may not even get a week to enjoy this beta as it's coming out, especially those that might have been able to give more input before the changes that are going to come out mid-beta as well.
Mm-hmm. They're not going to get to
the Mercy change, the Moira change. I think there are a couple other things that are supposed to be coming down the pike. Like that is.
And let's just not forget the whole fact that like they've been teasing Overwatch 2 for how long?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And look,
we're going on what? 12 years? Happen. Just give or take.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Something like that. Like I get it, things happen, but then you're and do that. It's just. It is really icky. It is really gross, and just
have they fixed the like Mercy like Ultra teabag?
The GA bug?
Yeah,
I don't know that they have. There was a patch that went through. Did you guys see this? Have you seen the clips? I don't know if we have a link to it. Like it's just like boom, 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 and like
oh yeah. So basically, they've been
like a 40-foot teabag.
But yeah, it's basically Mercy. Essentially, her guardian angel. How the Mercy super jump works, like Guardian Angel now essentially once you run to the end of it automatically gives you that. So not only is it ridiculous because now every time that you Guardian Angel someone, you are now popped straight in the line of sight of any hit scan whatsoever in any area, but some have learned to like be able to utilize that to just like yo-yo in the sky, which I guess is the strategy there, because if you're gonna be in the sky, at least make yourself unhittable.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's ridiculous.
There's literally the bug exists to like basically there's no cooldown on Guardian Angel, and like you said, you're just automatically springing back up into the air. If there's tournaments being run with that patch, like Mercy should be banned straight up. Like if people are running beta tournaments, and anyone listening who might be running a tournament, like if that shit's allowed, oh my god, it was already annoying enough the last beta where you had to press control, I think it was, to super jump yourself, and just having that flexibility on when you pop into the air. Yeah, this is.
Oh yeah, here's the
it's absolutely ridiculous. This clip, like, so stupid.
Oh my god.
And because you're Mercy, like you're not losing any downtime either, because you don't need to be shooting anyone while you're doing this. Your beam, you just literally can't die. And with redundancy in the game, you can't get stunned out of it. And it's like, it can't be allowed.
Like unless you have like ons on the team, that Mercy is not dying.
Even then, I would be surprised if ons could hit that shot consistently.
Yeah, so it's been interesting. So yeah, there's definitely some things to miss, some things to not miss. One thing that I have seen coming up quite a bit actually lately is, well, now that we have opened up the beta and we're slowly, we're, whether or not it's been effective or not, opening it up to more players. We have seen like the old Overwatch toxicity seems to be back in a major way.
Oh man, 24 hours I got before the first KYS. That was a good time. That whole 24 hours was so nice.
Breath of fresh air.
Exactly. It was just like, wow, teams coherent enough to play with one another and not be jerks to one another.
In a beta, in quick play only, no less.
Oh yeah.
It's not even comp. You're not even putting SR in the line, and people are having at it. Yeah.
I had a match. It was so funny because this tells you how programmed the toxicity is in some of these people. There was one match that it was pretty one-sided for the team that I was playing on. I won't lie. But at the end of the game, the guy was like, free SR. And I'm like, this is quick play.
Literally quick
SR
play.
here, dude.
Do you know where you are right now? Like,
you get nothing for this. You get no gold. You get no loot boxes. Nothing. Don't know what you're talking crap about, man. It truly blows my mind.
Have you guys felt there's been more toxicity in the beta, or like on par for the average Overwatch community? This might be a depressing question.
No, I mean, for the most part, in the conversations that I've had with those, or the people that I've played with in the beta, I don't think it's gotten that big. You can definitely see it there to a certain extent, but I wouldn't say that we've gotten to that point just yet. I definitely think if I loaded up Overwatch, I would find toxicity immediately, whereas I might get a game or two in before I find it in the beta. And I think that's just because of the pool of the
amount of people
that are playing in it right now.
Yeah. Just wait until ranked comes out and it goes free to play. Then we'll open the floodgates.
Mm-hmm.
Not that Overwatch is the only toxic community, but obviously,
no,
I think
it's not.
It's every game. It's every game with online multi. And we're not quite as bad as Call of Duty yet. No offense to COD players or Siege or things like that, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's always felt so out of place in Overwatch, to me at least. Like other games, I get it. It's a 12-year-old kid playing online for his 2 hours a night that he has to do before his homework, and he's raging with hormones and stuff like that. But like,
I mean,
but Overwatch feels like it should be better, and maybe that's biased, but it's like it's such a wholesome game for the most part, even though it's about killing people at the end of the day. It's still a first-person shooter. Yeah. It's like a way more wholesome environment than most other games out there, I feel, and I think it's not reflected.
Because Overwatch is a group project and everyone is anonymous. It is basically like, you can absolutely torpedo the group project on your own, but you cannot win it on your own. I think it breeds a special kind of frustration from people who don't know how to express themselves without basically violence. I think it brings a different kind of frustration beyond like, oh, I got killed. Like this person was like just a faster draw.
Yeah. Oh, this was my fault. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, everyone is bad but me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Someone in the chat just said there's no kills, it's eliminations.
True. Speaking of the scoreboard, that's why it's an E instead of a K.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also an important part to mention, though, right? Is that you could be doing the best that you possibly can, but if one of your supports, I have this happen every now and then, because the other big difference between PC and console is that for PC it at least costs money to get another version of the game for smurfing.
That's true.
Console, you can make an unlimited amount of toxic smurf accounts, and I mean that's a whole different conversation there. But nevertheless, like, you have the Lucio that's on speed boost the whole time because they don't care.
Look, I did it one time, and I tried. Sorry.
Hey, you know what? I'll take the speed only Lucio over the heal only Lucio. I swear.
Honestly, with the heroes I play and me always having to retreat to them, I would much rather have this.
Yeah,
to be
fair.
completely honest. I mean, if I'm on tank, maybe that's a story, but it's definitely, I guess, to zoom all the way out, toxicity in gaming, I feel, for those of you that don't know, I was actually a real person before I got into esports, like went to college and stuff, and I have I have a bachelor's in human development and family studies. So that's kind of like, how do humans grow? How do they interact with one another? And how do those relationships carry us through life? And the biggest thing that I think is the most wild, but then going back to that anonymity sense, is the toxicity in gaming, especially in games like Overwatch, like you said, Tikatee, where it seems odd that that's there, because obviously, the old adage goes, you can attract more flies with honey than vinegar. Like, if you're nice to people, you can get them to work better with you, but there are so many people, or at least the loudest people in the community, are like, I would rather beat you over the head with a baseball bat to try to get you to do what I want to do than try to say an actual nice thing to you to try to get you to do what I need to do. So toxicity just in the gaming space in general makes so little sense to me. And to such extremes, and I know that this is probably what we're tying into here shortly, we've had experiences where people have taken to another level. Like, we started 2022 with essentially, don't mind the fireworks, they're already going off in our area.
Oh no.
But we started off the year essentially getting bomb threatened online, like to the point that we were actually getting an address of ours like sent to us saying that we know where you are. And that anonymity coupled with even just the threat of something happening, especially in America, where if you were paying any attention to the day, great, and they haven't been great for a while, like, that possibility is on the table. So to me, it is hard, as someone who grew up in the early Nintendo, where games were supposed to be fun and interact. Once we got the ability to play with friends, like that was a good time.
Hey, I'm gonna bring bugs.
Exactly, like, in friends and making new friends, like once it became, connection over the internet with people across the country. Like, I have people, like, we live in Connecticut, I have friends all the way over in Washington State that I've been friends with for years because we game together. And seeing this kind of bred toxicity that comes in, those that literally take what it is supposed to be an enjoyable experience and take it either so seriously that they feel that they need to take these steps, or they find it that much of a joke, which I don't get how making death threats is a joke, but apparently some have a very sick sense of humor, that they're willing to go that far over a game, over something that honestly, for like 95% of us, will not earn us a dime, will not change our life. It is just something we're supposed to do to just enjoy ourselves and just kind of have a good time. It's sad, to be honest.
Yeah, that's insane.
And I will step off my soapbox.
No, it's such a heartbreaking issue, and you're absolutely right that, like, it's it feels like it's only gotten worse in recent times, and that's either because like the space is expanding, it's becoming more like mainstream, so more of these people are feeling comfortable in that kind of space, or it's just like the anonymity of it just feels, I guess, so empowering to some kind of people. But
I can say whatever I want.
It's sickening. Yeah.
Say the most vile shit that you've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
You can't find. It's really gross, and it's not uncommon. Like, I've played Smite since 2014. My God, the things that some people type and say, and I'm like, are you really that pressed about a 30-minute game? Like, come on. It's
definitely. It's definitely yeah. I don't know. And I don't know if it's ever going to change. But it's
no.
I guess that it comes down to the players.
Thing is the hardest thing is, you know, going way back earlier in our, it's more on money than on the quality of the game, because honestly, there is something that can be done about it. It can be easily done about it. There are systems in place. Console has 2 systems in place. Not only usually the in-game ones, the Xbox or PlayStation systems themselves to report people for toxicity and stuff like that. I cannot tell you the amount of people that anytime I am on Overwatch, I guarantee you, even though, to be honest, Overwatch is the longest game that I have played, starting like right after the first anniversary, I have probably, at least for Xbox, blocked well over 500 people.
Wow.
If not more. And I can't tell you how many times I log in. One of the people that you've reported had an action.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's great. It's too bad there's like hundreds of others.
Yeah, never ending.
More than likely, you just ban that account instead of the IP, so they'll just be back. So it's kind of this repetitive cyclical motion that companies know that toxicity, which honestly, if you want to take all the way back to the early, what was it, like 60s or 70s, when video games really started getting traction. And for those of you that may not, the reason that video games were so male focused is because they used to be sold in the toy aisle long before there was an electronics and video game aisle. And the choice of companies were, oh, well, there's a boy side and a girl side. Oh, crap, which way are we going to go? Oh, side, because, violence and stuff, that's what boys like, right? And so it is, going all the way back there, and then, talking now about inclusivity and, trying to bring others into the space and make sure they feel like they deserve to be here, just amplifies that toxicity from those that may have other worldviews, and now you're talking about playing across the globe in certain aspects, and that brings a whole new string of problems with it, with local cultures and whatnot. So, I mean, companies can do something about it, but at the end of the day, we know how hard is it hitting the bottom line? How hard can we take it before it starts impacting? Because that's only as far as we can go. And to those companies out there that really do the hard, sure that those people are out of those scenes, we appreciate you, and we wish there were more of you.
Yeah, I think definitely like the adding staff to address the reports is a really good point. I know even on PC, you can put in a lot of reports, and it's pretty rare you get those notifications. Yeah, it's that's definitely something to continue pushing for. I also think, calling people out. It's hard when you're by yourself, though. It's hard by yourself.
Like, what? I don't know if it's just because I've been playing for so long. I just don't give. Like, generally, I only play, like, I don't play the I play Assault, so you get assigned a random god. But, like, if I see somebody who's gonna asshole to another player. When the other, when this person's obviously trying, I'm gonna sit there and be like, dude, shut up. You're not helping the situation. Shut up. And generally it turns into like keyboard fight, and this it just you get so tired of it after so long.
I do. I have also noticed that like as I get older, I feel more comfortable engaging in stuff like that, and I know that probably comes from experience and maturity of being like, yes, I'm fully comfortable wading into this complete bullshit fight. As
knowing
as
there's no possible positive outcome.
Yeah, but I feel for me, like, speaking up is a big deal. Not because I'm going to change someone's mind, but because there's also like 4 other people, or I guess now 3 other people listening.
Yeah, you need to normalize that.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing.
I want the person that like is being singled out. Like, I want them to feel supported.
Oh, for sure.
I remember when I had no idea what I was doing. Of course, people are like, "Oh my god, you suck," uninstall. And so like I see that, and I'm like, have you stopped and just learning the game and maybe just free? It's like I don't want people to be like I felt. So.
And I think with Overwatch, it's a whole different level as well, because I personally am one, we want to talk about Overwatch differences. I am so looking forward to the cell phone number attached to your Battle.net account for Overwatch 2, like shutting down Smurfs like by a huge amount. Like, and some may say, like can get like Google numbers and whatnot. WhatsApp, stuff like that. But if they go the Valorant route, which if I understand correctly, like it shuts down those numbers as well. It's like, oh, that's not a real number. So
man, like
we're not
job application sites won't even take those kinds of numbers. Like it's not easy to it's not hard to detect those.
Exactly.
But even if they don't, though, like the amount of effort that it does take
a little bit higher.
to create the number, it's something.
Yeah. And I think that's going to have a major impact, because I find in my the ones that are the most toxic are the ones that choose to come down to play at my level and then wonder why we're bad. And it's like, we're playing here. We are bad.
What's our GPS doing? Being in gold. Like,
like,
what do you think?
What did you expect to happen at this level of play? Like, there is a reason there is a ranking system in the game, and you are purposefully choosing not to put yourself out of that system and not play at that level. And honestly, if I want to be completely honest, and it may be a hot take, whatever, I don't care. If you're smurfing, you're bad. If you can't handle playing at your level of competitive, you're bad. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fair.
This is especially true now, because the one defensible argument for smurfing before was there wasn't like a role queue. So you could be like a top 500 support player and never have touched DPS in your life. But there's that excuse is gone now, right? Like you don't get to decide that anymore. And and I do want you to know that, like, you're talking about like playing in gold and having these kinds of people, it doesn't go away no matter what rank you have.
It doesn't matter.
Like the amount of like streamers I've tuned into, and someone in the chat is like, oh my god, look at this guy, 4.1 hard stuck, probably doesn't know anything about the games. Like, you're talking about like the top 0.1% of the player base right now.
And that's from like 4.2, and some of the 4.3 is like
he's
actually you're both garbage.
Both bad.
Oh yeah. It's stupid.
The increments
honestly,
get smaller.
It honestly really it makes no sense to me, and I think the biggest area that at least I see it in that impacts me the most directly isn't necessarily in my comp games. I see it in like that path to pro scene, and that is what I think hurts the most. because I look at you know, the Blizzard team organizing you know, Open Division and Contenders Trials and stuff over the last year and a half now, and the toxicity level of some of these teams that are competing, and the refusal of people to call them out because they're good at a video.
I don't care
blows
how
my
good
mind.
You're acting like a
Yeah, it's a huge ego
it's like
check.
a privilege thing. Yeah, it's like it's a really gross.
Like what the biggest like fuck you that I have seen, at least on my Open Division season 3 of 2021, where ISU Redbirds were forced to play through Open Division instead of being able to buy a seat in Contenders Trials to be able to play. And so of course everybody that went against them got like it was dark mode plus American Tornado. Like, of course, very few people are going to be able people at that tier. But even though it was something that was completely avoidable, that the grand finals matchup in North America could have just been a forfeit. Could have just been, we secured our position. We do not want to play the grand final. Do not broadcast us. The other team that was competing, I do not remember, sent one player that wanted to play, saying that the rest of the team was still asleep. And that player still wanted to play, force production to go live for a whole map, casting a whole map 1v6. And then they forfeited.
That
is avoidable. And because as production, we had no control over whether the match went on or not, because we're not the admins in Open Division, like we had no choice but to keep going. And thankfully, I wasn't a part of that, but seeing my friends go through that, my friends having to go live, people, it was incredibly embarrassing. Like, oh. And I see the chat now. Don't even get me started on. Like, we'll spend the rest of the podcast talking about toxicity.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on a little bit here.
Yeah,
we could spend all night talking about this. We could talk all night about this. I did want to touch on quickly. Having kids doing esports. We've talked about shitty kids in esports and shitty adults in esports. Let's talk about what it's like just having just regular kids.
What was that?
Just shitty kids.
Oh goodness. I mean, I think the biggest thing with having kids in esports is it's kind of an interesting mix of both worlds, because I get to see a lot of the various sides, not only having kids myself, but seeing kids participating in esports, you know, being able to cast for EGF High School during Lakeside Showdown 3 last year. I got to meet a bunch of parents that were out there supporting their kids that were participating. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I am loved in this is seeing those parents that initially like would have thought, you know, probably a couple of years ago, oh, like, what is like playing video games professionally? That's a waste of time, yada yada. Seeing like colleges and stuff like jumping on this, that you scholarships, that you can get paid to do this, like this can be a job for some of these kids, and then seeing their parents get behind them as if they were playing any other professional sport, I think makes such a huge difference in the space. That is something that I have, and as someone that has kids, wants to support them in whatever they want to do. My kids like playing video games. They have no interest in, at least at this time, going into a professional direction. but that doesn't mean I support them any less in what they're going to do. So I think that that's probably the biggest boost in the parental, like, child involvement in the esports and gaming scene. Just seeing parents saying, okay, like, I could say that this is a waste of time, or I could support my kid in what they enjoy doing and
seems like a no-brainer.
What makes them happy. Knowing that I can also support those next places as well, because parents doing helping kids do college applications and stuff like that, like it's gonna be there. It's gonna be part of your research. Like, I can think off it, like, one of the first things that I did after completed its national championships, I tagged the winning teams with Northwood, Maryville, and ISU. I was like, look at those kids. Please look at those kids, because some of those kids are getting ready to go up to college next year or in the years to come. And I think that that's what all parents should be. Whatever your child's interested, like, you should be looking for ways to try to help them get there, because we live now in a world where you don't have to do something you don't enjoy. Like, we've all been there where we have to do jobs because we have to live. But nowadays, if you plan it out right and you support your kids well, they don't have to do that anymore. They can grow up doing what they love to do and also make money doing what they love to do, like, into their adult life. And I think that is it, with all the horrible things going on in the world right now, I think that's the best things that the future has for our kids. How about you?
Oh, that was awesome.
So, I was thinking parent since I was
No way.
young.
Oh, we're just losing you a little bit. You're cutting out just a little bit.
Speak
sorry.
up.
Sorry. But I gamed long before I had my kids. And now I get to introduce my favorite games to my kids. And that's, in and of itself, it's just a really fun adventure. You definitely don't have as much time to game as one might like, but with having kids, that's kind of the sacrifice you have to make.
Mm-hmm.
And one personally, I think, is definitely worth it. So, yeah.
Well, I think the good part is that you can also learn, because of the way technology is, you do things inside your kids as well. So, like, if they learn about a game that they enjoy, like, you can learn about it with them and enjoy it with them, which I think is a great thing about this space as well.
Yeah. Like,
it's not so much me passing down, this is how we used to play checks back in the day. It's, like, I know how to play first-person shooters. You enjoy person shooter that came out? Like, let's play it together.
Yeah.
Let's learn it together. And I think that creates so many more opportunities, and especially when just different ways that game companies are expanding. Like, you think about Hasbro, they've created, like, their family game night packs, where now you don't have to have a closet full of board games to enjoy family game night. It pop the disc in, or if you're super pro, it's already downloaded on console or PC, and then the family just plays together. And I think that, things like that, even stuff as simple as, like, Scriblio or Jackbox, like, things that you don't even have to be in the same room, can play with your adult kids,
older
or teenage or older, across country or whatnot, when they're traveling or away at school or whatnot. I mean, I think with all the toxic stuff that we've talked about tonight, there's a lot of good in gaming that I wish was just a bigger focus than, unfortunately, all the really crappy people out there that love making people's lives miserable. That's the unfortunate part.
Yeah, it's definitely a different medium that's opened up, a lot of communication and things like that, which, yeah, definitely both sides of that coin when you can talk to people more. Turns out. Yeah, well, that's really cool. It's really interesting. I know our producer Harvester also has kids. He does not have a mic on, I think, in OBS right now. But we often hear as we're setting up the show, I'll be back in 1 second. Like, or you'll hear like somebody yelling, like as the kid runs
I've had
by.
those moments mid-cast. I hear the scream, and then as soon as we go to break, I'm like, I gotta go, Dad, real quick.
It's definitely
might be a little longer than a 5-minute.
Definitely is part of the whole game. It seems like so. It's fun. It's fun, and we always get to hear his kids in the background and whatever they're up to. So yeah,
and I think one of the other best things, because our oldest is really big into like Five Nights at Freddy's, and even though they played the game, like they read all the books, they're into like the characters and whatnot, which I think is amazing. Like I think that it's awesome that games are also going into other avenues, because I personally am not a scary game movie kind of person. Just not, very much not into the jump scares myself, as I make sure to check behind the corners in the middle of the dark. But having those venues that you can still enjoy the story of a game, or even those creators that are out there like making compilations of what that story is, so that people can enjoy the game without having to experience all that, like Markiplier or the Game Theorists or Jacksepticeye, all the big names, but of course all the small creators out there doing their amazing stuff too. It really brings a whole new light to the gaming sphere, where you can just kind of enjoy the content of a game without necessarily having to play a game that you.
That was actually how I consumed a lot of like gaming content in teenage years. Like I watched a lot of like back before PewDiePie had issues. Like I watched PewDiePie all the time.
Yeah. Before.
Like
in the before time.
Yeah.
The early days.
The early days. But,
Before the fascism.
Yes. Like but that's how I got, turned on to a lot of these games. Like that's how I learned about Happy Wheels. I learned different things from like Markiplier, or like games I couldn't get my hands on. I could watch other people play, and I think that's just another interesting niche of like the internet and YouTube specifically. Well, not specifically.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Oh wait, there isn't anything else anymore. I forgot. TikTok, baby.
Facebook Live.
Oh, don't.
Yeah.
Facebook gaming. What a time.
That's a rough one. I feel for all the Facebook folks out there.
Yeah.
I think it's
so
nice.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Things have changed a lot. We are getting out of time though. We're at like 6:40 or my time, which so it's like 9:40 Eastern. So we got to move on.
Yeah.
Kids in esports. It sounds like a lot of fun. We've heard it from you guys. Sharing games with your kids. We've heard it from the background of Harvester's Mike on Discord, trying to keep him from doing whatever he's doing. This is gonna be a weird ass segue. How is the tank roll changed in Overwatch 2?
Wow.
Why did I put this at the end?
Well, like how parenting is, where you have to be kind of that foundation for your family. Well, now let's think about how that foundation has changed in Overwatch 2. I'm a caster. I know all about incredibly difficult segues perfectly, or at least making them as awkward as possible so it seems perfect.
So here's the thing: is it's in today's new world, being a single parent or a single tank is
I can't wait to 5v5 the neighbor's kids.
There we go. There we go. Nailed it.
Just pull a Steve Harrington. Stopped all.
Exactly.
True,
exactly.
true.
This is actually from. So somebody actually brought this up in the chat. And they said, what is the definition of tank? This is from Rapier Man in the chat. Said, what's the definition of tank as it pertains to Overwatch 2? Because I know we talked a lot of times, there's obviously the tank role. But a lot of what tanks did in Overwatch 1 was take space. They would take space or they would hold space. And that was kind of their entire, that was the thing. And it really does seem like in Overwatch 2 that it's less about like I guess DPS now are taking space and holding space in a lot more circumstances that are
Bracer takes a lot more space than Junker Queen, right? There's a lot more that these characters can offer other than just walking forward into a team fight now. With the 5v5 nature, the game's a lot faster. The game's a lot more volatile. There's a lot more individual focused playmaking. I don't have a definition for the different roles, honestly. Like at its core, you could say like tanks can take more damage than other classes. Like DPS can do more damage. Supports can heal more damage, like stuff like that. But like in terms of like their actual play style and the core of their characters, like how they play out in the game, they're so wildly different. And there's no one set definition for any of the classes, I would say, that can clearly define what their job is. Like you can't just say like, okay, all tanks are supposed to do this, and then you could lock Junker Queen in one game and lock Wrecking Ball in the next game and then lock Diva in the next game and say you followed that same vision with all those three characters, because they're just so wildly different. And if you'd like to know more, I put out a YouTube video a couple weeks ago about this very topic.
That's cool.
Casual plug.
I like, for real though, watch that video. It's tank. I think what's it called? Tanking in Overwatch 2. Tanks in Overwatch 2.
Breaking down tanks in Overwatch 2.
Yeah, watch that video. It's awesome. I wanted to get that in there. It's an interesting question because I feel like by the end of Overwatch 1 we kind of solved the like, what do tanks do? They take space, they hold space, blah blah blah. Now it's just like, now they just soak up damage but also do a ton of other stuff. So a little bit, yeah, I thought it was
damage dealers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I thought that was an interesting question. Moving on real quick because we are now at 9:45. This is
back to the Overwatch League.
we're just gonna I really fuck this up. I'm sorry, newbie. You were gone for like 1 week, and I'm just fumbling the shit out of this.
Hey, sometimes that's the way it goes. Just like Overwatch podcast is absolute chaos, and we can go any which way. You may think we're going this, we go this, and then we're
talking about parenting. JK, we're going to talk about how all the North American teams have clinched their spots for mid-season madness.
Nice.
We're changing the podcast meta right here.
Yeah, it's so yeah. We've talked about this before on what a bizarre tournament structure it is with all these points that you've collected from the first like sub tournament of the Overwatch League. And now it's kind of showing itself because we now have an entire weekend of games that means nothing for as far as NA goes. APAC still a little bit up in the air. It's a little bit it's closer, which we've kind of talked about before. But the standings for NA are basically locked, and we have an entire weekend of games that do not affect anything.
So yeah, again, what's crazy about this is not necessarily that the top 8 are clinched, but like looking over at APAC, Philly Fusion has 6 points, Chengdu Hunters have 5 points, with Chengdu Hunters having a better record, just because Philly made it further in the tournament last set, right? So like these kind of point differences, looking at like the LA Gladiators being 9-2, the San Francisco Shock being 11-0, but Glads won the tournament, so they're at 12 points. They're tied, technically. Things like that like shouldn't happen. Dallas Fuel over London Spitfire. London, like I said, they're on a tear this streak, but they couldn't place higher than 4th despite having a much better record, this split especially compared to Dallas, but they're 2 points behind because Dallas was in the tournament. So like these teams that are overperforming expectations and another way of looking at it, performing better than they did last stage, have such an uphill battle. And London is on the bright side of things because they had a relatively easy schedule. They are improving as a team and they tore through the series. But then you look at teams like Washington Justice, they had a middling schedule, or teams like Toronto and Florida, who are now tied for 6th, and they had like these tough performances. But then compared to teams like Houston, who have a somewhat similar record, they just don't stand a chance to catch up in points just because Houston was in the tournament at a higher seed or something like that. Like there's such an uphill battle. The good news is this is going away for the next tournament before coming back in the final tournament. It's so bonkers, man.
Man.
And then, like you said, to intro all of this next week's games in NA are so inconsequential. They don't matter for this tournament. They don't matter for the next tournament. At best, they matter for the final placements for getting into the grand finals. But it's hard to tell a team in like Washington Justice, who had such I can't think of another word besides embarrassing performance, losing their last match, to ask them to play at full tilt into this game that means nothing for their series. They
can't even play when it actually matters.
Yeah, exactly. So like, imagine them going into the set saying like, okay, I know that last set was rough, but now there's nothing on the line, so have fun. So it's like, I don't know. These kind of games should never happen. And we've seen tournaments where this doesn't happen with better structuring. We've seen tournaments where like you only place the top 6 and then the final 2 are play-ins, or the top 4, the bottom 4 are play-ins, and you could do things like that with more time, with more structuring, to make sure that these types of games don't happen. But
I would say Tikatee and I have worked on tournaments in the last 3 months that had incredibly questionable structuring when it came to the play-ins, and it was, I think, either on par or maybe better than this, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, obviously we had the benefit of not doing an entire league and just doing a one-off tournament, but yeah, like games should matter. Every game that a team plays during the league, they should be vying for a win because it should change the way they play the future season. There shouldn't be opportunities like this for teams to essentially take a break. And what I hate about all this more than anything, and I'm going to completely shift storylines here, is Vancouver plays Washington next week. And if Vancouver finally takes a win off Washington, everyone's going to say, oh, well, Washington didn't try because they didn't care about this match. Everyone's going to say that, and everyone's going to be like, oh, Vancouver hopium kind of thing. And the problem is they might not be wrong. You know, like this game actually doesn't matter to Washington, but this is Vancouver's chance to get on the board, rise from the depths, and actually make a splash here against a fairly middle table team who might be underperforming at the moment. This is where teams can change the narrative around them, but not if people have chances like this to just tear them down again.
Yeah, and I do wonder if Vancouver is now becoming like the new Shanghai Dragons, where it's like no one wants to get beat by the team that's 0-40. Where you're like,
that was very real, by the way. That was like the scariest game.
Oh yeah, you were in that.
I was trialing for Dallas Fuel in stage 4, and one of the first games I came down for was Shanghai, and like the tension, I'd never heard like such a quiet practice room before. Like usually like everyone's getting hyped up, everyone's like screaming comms, like everyone's like super focused, everyone's got like really crystal clear comms and like really patient voices and stuff like that. It's like, this is not Overwatch, this is not the game I know, but it's like, we cannot lose this game. We cannot be the team that loses to 0-40 Shanghai Dragons.
Oh my god.
That's incredible.
Oh, that's so bad.
Yeah, I could only imagine. Felt it that day.
Yeah, it's a little interesting, little insight for the Dallas Fuel. Trying not to lose to Shanghai.
And we didn't, so we're good. We were safe.
That's true. I remember that game. I remember the game.
It was closer than it should have been, but we didn't lose.
And it was too close. It was like, holy shit, Shanghai's coming out here swinging, maybe, and they were.
Maybe.
Oh
so,
goodness.
Yeah, we have had some other news that is not just teams completely shitting the bed. We had Paris losing a coach to mandatory military service here. Mobuki.
Mm-hmm. So we've had our share of early departures in the league this year. way more than usual, both with like the changing contract status for the players, which is a whole conversation that we've dived into before, but it's causing casualties in the league, as well as some coaching staff we're seeing as well. KDG most recently from the Toronto just dropped. But this is the first time we've seen such an unfortunate situation for a player or coach to have to leave the scene due to military service in this. So obviously a tough time already for Paris. They're performing like a bottom 3 team. There's, I guess, a potential chance that Mobugi was a terrible coach and maybe Paris stonks are about to skyrocket. But I think more likely this is only going to hurt their chances more. I haven't heard any bad things about him as a coach. Paris has obviously expressed I don't want to say sadness, but like regret that this has to happen. So it is really unfortunate, but this is what happens, I suppose, in the international league.
Yeah, I think Jack, you had said that you had some insight into this.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who is a veteran myself and connected to the various military leagues around various.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I just need to run. Speaking of children, my dog is losing his mind. I'll be back in 1 second.
All right, no worries. But speaking of like military service, I guess the good thing about where we are in the US is that there are recruiting, I guess, is a big part of military structure, interestingly enough. And so things like the military or chorus used to be the real big things that if you got recruited and you did well, like you could aspire to get in on those merits. Like you could like move, instead of doing necessarily active duty, you were active recruiting, so to speak. And I think that's an interesting direction that esports has gone in for the military as well, is that if you look at US Army, Navy, I'm not for certain about the other branches if they have I think the Air Force has their own organization as well, although I'm not for certain how suited it is for the scene. But the fact that they've kind of embraced that to a certain aspect and have started using that as a recruiting strategy. But thinking in the terms of military service, it would be interesting to see militaries using these as opportunities, similar to for those of you that may not know how the military works in the US, if you sign up for the officer program, which you can do out of high school, typically officers go to a 4-year college on top of their officer training. So they come out with a bachelor's or master's degree in a certain area along with their officer training before first reporting to, at least in the Navy, their ship, or in various other militaries, their platoon or whatnot. So it'd be interesting to see if this ends up, instead of it being a loss, somehow they can kind of turn this around to maybe a more recruiting opportunity, sending Mo Gooby back and saying like he is kind of our representative, so to speak. I also am not 100% certain now. Obviously there's mandatory military there, so I'm thinking first 2 years after 18 usually is how it works in most countries, that there's a mandatory military service with training and whatnot, just as a so I would say it's to a certain extent similar to like jury duty. It's just kind of the thing that you do to show your pride in your country, so to speak.
Your civic duty.
Yeah, your civic duty, so to speak. But I mean, it'd be interesting to see if there is a way that they can kind of turn this on its head and make it more of an opportunity. But at least based on what we know now, like you said, it is a very unfortunate loss that it has to be that way, because usually these built-in mandatory military services have exclusions to that.
I think that's
interesting
true.
To see that's not the avenue that this ended up going into.
So we've had when I was working on the field, we had Korean players on our roster as well, and there were some that came due for military service as well. But I remember, I don't know how it works, but there's like sort of like legal loopholes. I know one is like if you've got a green, like an immigration card to come to the US or to any country outside Korea, I would assume. Maybe there's like a list of specific countries or something, and you're there working, you can continue on your work term, but then as soon as you go back to Korea, you have to fulfill your service. I think. I wouldn't quote me on that. Obviously, I don't know a ton about it. And for the most part, I have also heard that like the experience there, even though it is like mandatory for everyone, is a relatively positive one. It doesn't feel it's a lack of opportunity. There's a lot they learn. Obviously, it's a good job experience. They get paid during it. Obviously, all these kinds of things. One or our coach's Vol'jin actually was a drill sergeant in the Korean military when he was doing his service. You would never have guessed it from his personality. One of the nicest people I've ever met. But it was just so funny to hear that about his background. But yeah, it seems odd to me because like I've seen cases in the Overwatch League, Eden. I've seen cases in the Overwatch League where people are, or players especially, are getting basically passes to stay out of the country, to extend their stay outside of the country. I'm not sure what the legal requirements there are for it, but there is precedent where players have stayed longer, fulfilled contracts for longer before going back at a time of their choosing to fulfill their service. So it sounds like, based on the wording from the tweet especially, that Paris was trying to work something out like that but couldn't manage it in time. And I'm wondering if that's because of their EU base rather than NA base, because he's not actually working in Paris where their company is likely based out of,
or Vegas,
or now Vegas. Yeah, I'm wondering if there's some sort of like miscommunication there, or sort of like logistical thing. But yeah, definitely an unfortunate loss for them. But yeah, hopefully this doesn't mean the end of their esports career if they don't want it to be, and they'll be able to make a way back or work something out as they're back home and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, always opportunities.
That's honestly the great thing about feels like you just live. So at least for me, it was like 5 years. I went back to what I was doing. So
fair enough.
I mean, honestly, is if you can keep that spark going, keep that interest going. I mean, you know, heck, find others that share similar interests. I mean, there's all sorts of people in the military. I mean, I definitely wish them the best, but I agree it's gonna be rough for Paris if they don't find a way to take care of that moving
pick up the pieces.
Yeah, this is not a team that was like, if they have less coaching, it's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunate. Some other kind of random news bits. Overwatch 2 doesn't match mouse sensitivity. So for those of you, I don't know what it's like on console, but the sensitivity, I guess, is
anyway. I mean, it really doesn't.
Yeah, and it's honestly like I'm gonna totally say that's why I'm bad, is because the sensitivity difference.
Everyone's got a cop out now. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you feel like you've been bad, you may be entitled to compensation, but you're not.
Ageless Tikatee, attorneys at law.
Yeah.
Like for your SR points.
I guess it's like 0.01 difference. People are noticing it more on like flicks and things like that, where it's nothing where it's like, oh, this feels bad. It just feels like slightly different, which I'm assuming if you're good makes a big difference.
I think there's a lot of misinformation about this too, because I've heard so many conflicting reports where it's like it's only happening to users with NVIDIA graphics cards, or like it fixes itself if you change the render scale, or like it automatically changes your sensitivity by 0.01, like you were saying, which it does visually, but I don't know if that's actually changing anything behind the scenes, right? Or if that's just the number representation it's giving us. And I think what's weird about all this is like there's just been no communication from Blizzard. Usually, I shouldn't say usually, because Blizzard's been pretty bad about communicating in the past. But usually when something happens like this in a game, there'll be some sort of patch notes being like, hey, we're working on this, or hey, this was a bug fix that we solved, kind of thing. And people were mentioning this in the previous beta as well, so this isn't necessarily a new issue. And it's strange that we just haven't heard anything definitive about what it is. I've seen so many different reports about what fixes it though, and I've tried a couple of them. I'm not good enough, I don't think, to notice the indifference. So I'm definitely not the one that should be testing these things. Yeah.
Did you try turning it off and then back on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I've noticed is that Hanzo doesn't feel as easy, and that Ana Bionades don't feel as easy. There's just been like a couple like
They feel
Hanzo's
heavier,
like,
right?
yeah, they don't go as far and they don't splash as big.
They're definitely not, though. I feel like it's definitely like a placebo thing, but I feel the exact same thing every time I play Ana, and I don't know why.
And
I've just
Hanzo,
heard people saying that about the game in general, though, which I think is interesting. Like, and it may totally be that. I don't know if there's similar issues on console because it's not like console is not nearly as exact. But there has been a lot of that going around. Is that something feel like it feels heavy, which I don't know what that is, but I kind of
What does that
feel
mean?
that I understand what that means.
it's very like the vibes are off.
Like, but I mean, I think it's also the fact that we have to kind of take into account that this is also not a finished game. And I think that honestly, in the big scale of things, that's the thing that has been so odd to me. The fact that Overwatch League is not playing on a game, that people are so excited to not play on a finished game, and then complaining about it. Like,
you gotta think,
but it's not done. Like, so I wonder if maybe that's why, not to give Blizzard any excuses, because we know that they're well past that. But that could be the mindset here, is that we know it's not finished. We're working on it, along with the millions of other things that we're working to try to get this pushed out to the date that we promised. Because Lord knows we've been promising this date for years now, to a certain extent. And we know if we don't get it this time, there are going to be
how much money do you want to bet that they postpone it again the October date?
Oh my god.
Don't speak that into existence. Don't manifest that. We've been waiting for 3 years.
We're clipping that.
My wife. You said to say things that were controversial. You had to say the one thing that I've been thinking for a month now. Actually, online.
Yeah.
Well, at least if that happens, we can come back and be like,
we're gonna come back and clip this.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
That's just. I mean, there are obviously tons of additional conversations we could have at the fact that the whole world just went through a global, to be honest, still going through, although some may not consider that to be the case, still going through a global pandemic that has taken away 2 years of our lives that people have had to adjust to. And, not to say that that's necessarily any excuse to the lack of communication from Blizzard or whatnot, but it's like we've gotten into this age of gaming to kind of tie everything all back together, that there's this expectation from the community that, like, give us the game or we'll riot. And then they get the game unfinished and then wonder why it's bad. And it's like, in order to create good things, it takes time to do that. Yeah. Like, I can make you a really crappy steelsmith in probably about 2 hours. But if I took much longer to learn how to and be able to give you a well-finished product, it may be something that does more than bonk the enemy on the head. So it's like it goes back to this understanding of that, games are meant to be enjoyable, and that regardless of where we are in this beta right now, my hope, despite what my realistic thinking is telling me, is that somehow, some way, Blizzard is able to push through this and we actually get a good product on October 4th. Because to be completely honest, and to be my realistic self, I don't see it happening based on where we are.
I think to keep in mind there, though, they're still labeling it early access for October 4th. It's still not going to be finished.
It's not even still the real game, even though
they've got their pop-outs. Yeah, so that's obviously going to be a more complete version of the game, and it is going to be like they're not going to take it away from us in a month kind of thing. So it is going to feel like a complete game, and I think a good thing to remember about Blizzard, despite everything about Blizzard, they're good at putting out a polished product. When Overwatch 1 launched, like that was ground shaking for the FPS scene, right? Like it was incredible. When games like StarCraft came out, every World of Warcraft launch, most World of Warcraft launches are incredibly well received. Right? So even if this is Blizzard's first branch into live service games, which should have been Overwatch 1, but they admit their failings there, that's not what they planned the game to be. Even if this is sort of like a new dimension that they're traveling into, their expectations of themselves, I feel, will be high. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of unpolished, messy stuff in the beta, but that's because they're trying to give us something, anything at this point. And I agree, I don't think it's going to be finished on October 4th either, but I think whatever they do give us is going to feel good, and it's going to be enough. And hopefully with the live service aspect of it, it'll keep us busy until the full release.
Yeah, I think a big part of the strangeness was that they were like, "Oh, COVID's not affecting us." Like if they had just been like, "Guys, shit's fucked. There's a global pandemic. It's awful."
I mean, hey, everyone would be like, "Yeah." I don't know why the dev team didn't.
Yeah, there was so much opportunity to be like, "Guys, it's brutal. The whole world is ending. I don't know what to tell you. It's fucked. That's it." People be like, "Yeah, shit is fucked. It's so fucked. Fine. Take a year."
Yeah.
But they're like, "Shit's totally not fucked. Don't worry about it. It's gonna be fine."
Just you wait.
Yeah.
Wait till you see what Mercy can do.
Yeah. Wait for this 60-foot teabag that we got planned for you. Like
that's what I can't like justify. Like polish and stuff, like the aim not feeling right and on a nade feeling heavier. Like sure, you get a pass. Mercy being completely busted when you this was the change. This is the change you introduced that you're telling. Oh, here, have fun. Like here, this is what you get, and you just hand us garbage. I can't get behind that one.
That's honestly something that hasn't made any sense to me. Because it's one that has tried a pretty good number of times to learn how to super jump. I don't really care that I can't do it, and I'm pretty happy for those that can. So, and I haven't seen like a whole lot of complaints of people that can't do it. You know, it's not like, man, I wish this was easier so everyone could. It's like if you can't do it, great. If you can't, you know,
it's not like
learn how to do it.
How you play the game. It's not like, oh, I missed that super jump, so
they did kind of like Assassin's Creed, like parkour it, where they're like, just hit X, and then run at literally anything. Yeah, and you can do whatever. And yeah, that is kind of the vibe I got. Was like the Assassin's Creed went from like parkour is cool to like you can do anything. You could do this in a coma. Like if you could be dead.
Press X this one time.
Yeah, you could be dead and have like rigor mortis.
Just hold X. Water bombing birds, just tapping the shift key.
Yeah,
and you never die.
And like pow, hidden blade. It's
I would love to see that for skill set Twitch streamers or YouTubers out there. I want to see either the taped, weighted down keyboard with the settings properly, or like the properly rubber banded Xbox controller with the X key down. I want to see that in a live game, like recorded. Hands off and just see the Mercy bobbing up and down on the. Oh my goodness,
it'll happen.
If it hasn't happened already, I'd be surprised.
To be honest, there was I remember now, there was a trend when Overwatch 1 was in its heyday of people playing the game with weird peripherals like Guitar Hero guitars and steering wheels and playing Winston with Donkey Kong bongos.
We used to watch this guy on YouTube, just all these first-person shooter games with the most random. Do you remember, right?
Yeah, I forget what is not great anymore, but there was what was one? He used like the power glove to beat like Eternal.
Oh yeah,
or something like that. And I'm just like, what? Like, who comes up with this? And why are you still able to do it?
Yeah,
it is insane. Insane.
The guy that plays COD with rock band drums is rough. Getting killed by the guy playing with the rock band drums is like getting beat. That's like you're the team that just got beat by Airbud. Like a golden retriever playing basketball just shit on your basketball team. Like
the team that loves to for the first time.
like that sucks. Like there's no rules that says a golden retriever can't play rock band drums in Call of Duty.
Yep.
But like
that's the new Airbud movie.
That's the new Airbud movie.
Airbud joins the CDL. Yeah.
I mean, it's like I think one of the biggest memes to not come out during the first beta was seeing, and I ended up making it myself shittily, was seeing the Orisa helicopter video with the helicopter song. I never saw that the entire beta, and I'm like, I'm so disappointed in all you memers out there. So just know, if you played the first beta and you didn't make that, I'm disappointed. There was a golden opportunity right there for you.
Think of all that Reddit karma.
All of that, all of those songs down, all down.
Yeah. Okay, we gotta move on.
Off the rail.
Yeah, this is
all over the place tonight.
This is fucking out of control. I'm so sorry, Adam. Adam's been away for 1 week, and we've been talking about Rock Band. Quickly, contenders changes. Contenders is coming back. It's the summer Path to Pro. It's happening. They haven't updated the contenders website, but
why would they?
No. So if you would like information on contenders, don't go to the contenders website. Go to the Paths to Pro blog post on the Overwatch League website. So on overwatchleague.com, you can go to there's a Path to Pro update summer series tournament. If you go to contenders, it just takes you to you can sign up maybe. So if let's
in 2020.
Just love that it's a possible open sign up. Contender spots that should or be locked. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. It's by the way, we care a lot. So yeah, there's a new update for the summer series, and I feel like I had a chance to skim this a little bit. I haven't had a chance to give it a big thorough reading. It seems like there's this summer series, and there's A sides and B sides. Is anyone super familiar with this?
I believe. Go ahead. Sorry. I was just gonna say, I believe it's just two separate tournaments.
I think
where the rankings
kind of
feed into B
down to a certain degree. It's supposed to be kind of this is the group stage on side A, and then the real contender teams.
Right.
This is essentially the new trials, I guess, where it's going to be essentially a 32 team. Bare knuckle brawl to I believe it's the top 8 move on to the B series. I'm not 100% for certain. My eye hasn't been so much more on the focus. Say that again. The top 8 teams are moving on from the 8. So it's definitely supposed to be another weeding the wheat from the chaff kind of tournament, similar to Open Division. But for me, my mind has been more on the teams that have gotten into those, especially unfortunately, the top 16 spots, because that's all that's recorded on Liquipedia, because Game Battles immediately takes everything down once it is done, which is unfortunate. And looking at, I guess I find it really, at least for North America, the teams that I'm seeing at the top, I guess I'm not surprised, but I'm also wondering where other teams that we've seen at this level of play are. The biggest one that I recognize at this higher level of play is the champs, GeForce. but then you have to go all the way down to right at the top 16 to where you see other teams that are relatively Solstice and Shigagami. And I'm sure that there are players that are probably recommending the other teams that are playing. But I find it interesting that during this kind of contenders hiatus, there's been kind of a real shift in the tier 3 scene. Like, if you go to the EU, it definitely doesn't look very different. You're seeing a lot of, you see Equal Friend, you see Munich Esports, Team Peps. There are a lot of previous Overwatch League players that are playing together with a couple of, Marigo playing their usual game of, that was a fun one. Mind Goblin in the top 16. But for the most part, like, North America has had a very interesting shift, whether it's just like the teams that people are associated with, or if it is the players themselves as we shift into Overwatch 2, which is also another aspect of this tournament that still has everyone like, why? Because Open Division was played on Overwatch 1.
You qualify for contenders,
and now
and then
we're
you
going
change
into
games.
Overwatch 2, where like everything is different and none of this matters. Like, none of what they just did really matters, other than they got their golden key in.
Yeah, it's got to be. I feel like in contenders, the coaching during this portion must have been so stressful. Like, coach a team in 6v6, and then swap. Coach a team in 5v5.
Cut a player.
Yeah, you have to like. Yeah, you're like a player,
or teach that player to play, main tank off tank, whichever role they need to swap to.
Yeah, obviously,
Or
that's
just
not
like
actually going to happen. But just like the idea of going from a starting 6 to a starting 5 is completely bonkers already. And then, like, imagine like they're scrimming right now, like, and they're playing with the mercy jump right now. Like, imagine like that's what contenders teams are practicing.
I didn't. And that's
I don't know. I don't know if they're playing on Owl Patch or Beta or what. But...
is that all these players, this is supposed to be the way that they get to the Overwatch League, and even the Overwatch League hasn't had a whole lot of time to practice.
Yeah.
They are doing, because they're also playing on beta, and it's like all it's going back to what I said earlier, the fact that Blizzard thought the right idea for new content was to shift everyone to the currently being built game to become a pro in this scene, at least for this year. Just, it still blows my mind that we have not had more issues than have already been. And it honestly makes me wonder if the teams that we see at those top levels of play would still be there despite the if it weren't for all the chaos that was going on. Because like you said during your earlier analysis, there's some teams that there's still this fluctuating beta or this fluctuating meta go, trying to figure out really what do we do here other than play the super broken heroes that we still work. So like I just can't imagine what contenders is gonna look like. It's gonna be a trip. People are probably gonna enjoy the chaos, but for the teams, I feel really sorry for.
Definitely stressful.
Interesting. You know what I don't think they're gonna do? I don't think they're gonna fucking lock a Rhine mirror against London, though. No matter what these teams do.
Well, I mean,
they're not doing that.
London on the list of going in. So
if you watched them a couple of years ago, you might have.
Maybe I don't know. The EU might have their academy team playing. So I mean, we could see the comeback.
Honestly, the equivalent I think would be
British Hurricane and contenders playing the same.
That would be so funny, actually.
Or like honestly, like Munich Esports. Like we saw a lot of Munich Esports.
They like the run.
They like their Reinhardt. I don't think one of those I hope one of those contenders teams does not be like, you know what we should do? Let's take the Rhine mirror against Munich. So if anyone watched that Justice game, don't take the Rhine mirror versus Munich. Just play ball. Just
play.
We saw them
anything.
Play anything.
Like
anything.
We just saw a whole stage of London being countered by forcing Rhine everywhere, and now some teams can get away with it. Like Gladiators are getting away with it because they know how to play Rhine effectively. But like, I don't know. We've talked about it. I don't want to get back into it. It's
So anyway,
it's a whole thing.
Contender side A
goes back to the roots of Overwatch. Right? You got to outplay the players.
Yeah.
So if they pick something, if you think you can do it better, then that's fine. But honestly, the easier way to do it is just play something else that screws up their crap. That's all that matters at the end of the day.
So yeah, that starts July 13th. Is going to be side A of contenders. That's coming back. There's a couple other tournaments that we want to quickly have a look at. So that's July 13th. Contenders side A begins. There's also the Bad Patch of Mario League, which is honestly one of the best community leagues that I've ever been a part of. I've casted for them a couple times. Absolutely, like a lot of their like producers and observers and stuff get like pulled up to Overwatch League or contenders and stuff like that. Just probably as far as community leagues, the best production I think I've ever been a part of anyway. They're coming up July 15th. They're doing a beta brawl. I also have the OWX Latam that I think that
America season 0. So for those of you in the South American country, spirit of things, Elo Hell is running their first Latin American tournament. So signups for that are going until the 13th, and it starts on the 16th. So if you haven't gotten registered, get registered today. They actually posted something to the Elo Hell Twitter, so you can get all the registration info and stuff like that. But I personally love seeing a lot more of the tier 4 expansion that is going on right now, because it's like, we would love to do more for y'all, but without a new that, so we're restricted, similar to the beta brawl. But seeing the expansion into other countries that we haven't seen a whole lot of, like the esports base and the talent from there, unless they got pulled into places like Overwatch League, I think that's gonna be a trip. It's gonna be so much fun.
It's definitely something that I miss about the Overwatch World Cup, is kind of seeing the
different regions, the
different regions come up, because like when you look at like the Middle East and stuff like that, like
Saudi Arabia,
Saudi Arabia has some like monster players that come out, or like Russia came out with like just
Falcon
awesome.
Esports.
Yeah.
Yep.
So some really interesting
all the time.
Yeah, that the tier 4 tournaments are always really interesting, because you can kind of see there's usually like one or two players that will come out and just pound, and then they are the ones to watch to see if they kind of make it through. It's really interesting. I really like those tournaments. I miss the World Cup. I know that like no one else does, but like
that's unfortunate.
I know. I thought it was
a lot of people
cool.
do, but I don't think a lot of people realize how good it is for the scene. At least not like a lot of the competitive community who are like already watching Overwatch Leagues, like what's really missing. For a lot of the casual community, like what better way to get behind the competitive scene? But he's like, hey, my country's playing in this tournament. Like even if you know nothing about the game or the players, like, hey, that's my country. That's representation.
That's the entire
about the Olympics. Model. Nobody cares about the Olympics until their country's playing in it that year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're like, oh yeah, you know what I'm really into? Fucking diving. Yeah.
I'm into diving because my country is amazing.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
I watched every speed skating event this year. Like that doesn't happen. I agree though. I think the Overwatch World Cup definitely brings out this like, what is this? I'll watch the World Cup. And like that's for me, that's how I got into like Overwatch as an esport. But I think it is a really good opportunity, and clearly Blizzard knows this because they built an entire league around cities. So like the like localization franchise model is clearly something that's valued. So I guess even if it wasn't a LAN tournament, I'm surprised that we're not seeing an Overwatch World Cup. It sucks doing the like minimum 100 ping or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know what also sucks is like 7 months of having nothing. So like
fail ass game.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I do hope with contenders coming back and showing this tournament model rather than trying to be like a mini Overwatch League, I hope they keep that model for the Overwatch League off season, because third-party tournaments, and if those lead into contenders, if you can like play enough. I don't know if you guys follow Smash Bros, but the way like the Smash World Tour works is you can compete at basically like Nintendo sanctioned locals, and if you win those tournaments, you get points. And then you can accumulate those points to enter some of the major tournaments and get seeded better based on your performance at these minor tournaments. That's how contenders should operate. There's so many. Oh, hi, buddy. There's so many. Here's Archer. He agrees.
Yeah. Bring back World Cup, Archer.
Yeah, he's ready for World Cup. But there's so many like passionate smaller communities, and if you could put them on a pedestal just to show them, give them just a minuscule amount of support so they can run their own scene, then you don't need to give them a ton of prize pool. You don't need to run production all these events. They'll do it themselves. These people are passionate about the scene, passionate about the game. And then you have all this hype building about these local scenes. These local names start popping out. It's like, oh, this guy he's been winning every local at these events. He's been winning every minor tournament kind of thing. Now they get to show it on the big stage. Those storylines are, that's esports, baby. Like that's what makes these games so exciting to watch.
That's a seed.
It sucks that that's been missing for so long in Overwatch because of Blizzard requiring so many rules in place. Like only they can run their tournaments for so long, and only specific hosters can run production and things like that. But I hope this is a step in the right direction of opening that bar a little bit.
When we did the open, we were on the broadcast side of things from Questline, but some of the rules and things like that had to be jumped through because we had a prize pool. Like you can get a community license and you can kind of do your thing. As soon as you have a prize pool, it's like, oh yeah, you can broadcast on like every third Tuesday if it's a half moon, as long as like no one from contenders is awake.
Yep. Sounds about right.
It's so absurd. I'm really hoping, if anything, I know Microsoft hasn't had the best record with esports, considering they've basically had Halo in a chokehold for the past year. But I hope they at least let the leash out a little bit on Overwatch, because it is such a challenge, and these are volunteers that are like scraping together the time and money to put together a tournament. We've talked about it before. It's tough. It's tough on the best of days to put together a tournament, let alone they're like, oh, by the way, you can't have sponsors if they have any money. Is like the rule with Blizzard is like, yeah, if you want to give away granola bars to the winners, you're good. But like if you want to give away $30, you can get fucked. So
pretty much, it's. I think some people that are really unappreciative now every tournament does have their issue. I won't, but like you said, the number of hoops that have to be jumped through to put some of these tournaments on, that has been like the last year and a half of my life is absolutely insane, especially for Overwatch compared to other esports. Like if you look at like Apex, they're like, do whatever the hell you want as long as like, please, like, because this is supposed to be free promotion for them. Like, this is supposed to get people excited about their game with no effort from them. But
marketing,
like, that takes me back to freaking this last December. I had been working with Will English, and we got hired to do a tournament for the Toronto Defiant, and their community server. And then Blizzard was like, oh yeah, we're going to plan an event this exact same week, planning the tournament teams. And I'm like, okay, I understand fucking us over in the community, but now you're screwing over your own team. Like what does that say? Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. The Toronto owners are some of like the most involved people too in in the esports space. They're like one of the actual groups trying to grow the scene and not just like throwing money at it and seeing what happens.
And they get that Bell money too. They have like telecom cash, like that. They're like
they're
like
good
the
connections,
Comcast of Canada. So, like,
but like not in the necessarily bad way.
Yes.
Just in the size, in the good way, like size wise.
in the like protected monopoly kind of way.
Yeah.
So yeah, Latin America. Anyway, Death Tier 4. Some cool stuff happening. League Zero. What is League Zero Season 5?
League Zero is another one of those top 4 orgs that is starting up their season again. So just happened to be, if you're interested in any of this information, there is a server. I'm not for certain if I believe it is now open public to be part of, and I can provide a link after the broadcast. But it's basically like anything that is happening between tier 4 and tier 2, like they are recording, like they are working with other communities to be like to like amplify and broadcast like tournaments that are coming up, like that. Like a lot of these tournaments are where I got that information from. So I think that's one of the best things about what our community is doing right now. They even just recently brought Flutie on staff to work on the collegiate side for scheduling and stuff.
Flutie's a monster.
Oh, Flutie's amazing.
Like, holy, so talented.
Being able to work around, like, you know, helping them say, oh, collegiate's got something this weekend, so maybe or trying to plan around things like that. So
that was something that we ran into with the Open. Was they let us plan a $10,000 tournament on the same weekend as collegiate and didn't tell either party. So
we had that same issue with one of the invitations. Yeah.
So we talked to Flutie, and Flutie was like, "Yo, what are you doing?" And we're like, "What do you mean? What are we doing? We don't even know what's going on." We're like, "Oh well." So Flutie's like, "Why are you planning stuff during collegiate?" And we're like, "If you think we knew about this," so that's perfect. I think that it definitely solidifies. Like, if you are out there and you're planning a tournament, find Flutie and make sure that you are
resources.
Yeah, find these resources, check it out. Don't stomp on each other. Don't cut into each other's shows at all. It's tough, and you're never gonna know unless you probably talk to Flutie. To be honest, because you're not gonna find out from Blizzard because they won't tell you.
Nope.
So ask Flutie. They also. Speaking of Will English, there is the Will English Invitational or Ivitational for in Roman numerals for number 4. That is also coming up. Registration does close on the 22nd. I'm gonna quickly just throw all these links into the chat as we're talking about kind of all of these kind of interesting tournaments coming up here. So I'll throw those in the chat for anyone who is interested in having a look at those. And yes, Jack, if you have that link that you were talking about that talks about all the other, if you're able to either throw that in the chat or throw it into Discord as well, I can throw it in the chat. Makes a big difference. We're all here because we give a shit about Overwatch, and it's esports scene that is struggling at the best times, I would say, based on Blizzard's best efforts to kind of like hold the pillow on its face for the past 2 years.
Only 2 years?
Yeah. Sorry, 4. Yeah, 5 years. So yeah, if there's always something that we can be doing. Have a look at, especially at these small tournaments here. We got the Discord link. Have a look at this. I'm gonna go ahead and join that as well as we're doing this.
I was saying the same thing.
Yep, just gonna everyone open up your Discord.
They just recently even created a calendar for it. So like, if you want to see how it's all spread out, like that's literally how I figured out what coming up in July was. I just looked at the Google Calendar, like, oh, okay. And mark this event, mark this event, mark this event. So,
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
I mean, they definitely a big shout out to Alex Yoshi. For those people that don't know, Alex Yoshi is like, if you think some of us are insane in the scene, Alex Yoshi is like the silent person that is a part of every server and is somehow on staff, but I think is more just like the sponge of tier 4, like always sucking in information about the scene and just trying to make sure that everybody knows about it. So major shout out to them. They do so much great work behind the scenes that isn't nearly as appreciated as it should be. Love you, buddy.
And if definitely join this server, because if you have a look at the partners and the admins of this, this is kind of like the who's who. I feel like, yeah, it's Flutie, Natter, Raven, Magnetic, Andy, Hyperion, Solomon, Obsidian. Yeah, it's join this. Resurge, Tranquility. Yeah, join that Discord server. We just put the link in the chat. Get into that server. We all care about Overwatch. This seems like a really good way to continue caring about Overwatch in an informed way. Let's do a quick. We're gonna do like a 1-minute predictions. We are like well over 2 hours now. We're gonna do like a 1-minute predictions here. If we can pull up the APAC schedule here coming up, and we'll go down the line and give a quick. Some of these are going to be a little bit easier than others. APAC,
getting
obviously.
my D20 ready to predict APAC.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, I'll get mine too.
Yeah.
I don't get to use this for anything because I haven't. So this should be fun.
We're gonna need to get some D&D. So like the parent company of Questline Esports is Questline, and Questline does tabletop games, like mostly D&D.
There we go.
So we're gonna need to make something happen. Some
Nice.
Masters and Castles action or something like that.
Exactly.
So yeah, Tikatee, who do you got for Friday?
It's hard not to just say Philly and Shanghai. Although Shanghai's been iffy at best recently, right? Like Shanghai's record. Let me look at the record real quick for this split because I haven't been keeping up with APAC to be perfectly honest. I don't know how well these teams have been looking, but I've been seeing Shanghai underperforming somewhat. So
Shanghai is, I would say, like the Dallas Fuel, I would say, of APAC, where you're like, they're totally going to stomp this team. Oh wow, 3-2.
Yeah,
okay.
They absolutely should, and I doubt they would like throw a game to help Chengdu get into the playoffs or anything like that. But these are the two games that actually matter this weekend, and they're both happening Friday. I guess the Sunday match for Philly as well, and the Saturday match for Chengdu. But both Philly and Chengdu have a chance of hitting that 4th slot for the APAC top 4 for the mid-season madness tournament. So both these teams are absolutely gunning for that spot. Philly should have a very easy time taking down Guangzhou. They're looking like the worst team in APAC. They're looking like the Vancouver Titans of the East, unfortunately. And if Blair's here in chat, she's going to kill me for saying that. But
that's true, yeah.
There's still like not a huge skill disparity between most of the teams in APAC, but Guangzhou is a little bit behind most other teams. So Chengdu playing Spark is probably going to be their toughest matchup, and then Philly playing Seoul, that should go Seoul's way. But if Philly can outperform their average, and if Shanghai throws against Chengdu has a chance of taking that spot. But otherwise, I can see Philly taking the top 4.
Fair. Any agreements, disagreements there, Jack, Artemmys?
My dice came up both 18, so definitely going with the charge.
Oh, we lost you there for just a second.
I just said that just going with the and the dragons for no other reason than the dice. So we'll see if
the dice never lie
on their side. I would love to say that that's the case, but I've seen a lot of interesting ways that a dice can be interpreted.
Yeah, somebody's juicing their rolls. I think that's Justice, maybe.
No, Justice are throwing the dice out the window.
It was like my cast the other day. It's just the roast. This podcast is what it ends up coming down to. That's all Overwatch is.
Besides me, they're the most disappointing child. So it's
that hurts. That hurts.
So let's look at NA. What are we thinking? I'll hand it to Tikatee again here for NA. What's gonna happen in North America this weekend? Besides things that don't matter.
Yeah, well, nothing matters. For narrative reasons, I think the only two games I really care about watching are going to be Washington, Vancouver, to see if Vancouver can get on the board, and Houston versus Boston to see if Houston is as bad as people are making them out to be, because they are just scraping by on wins. They're somehow seated at 5th right now. I guess they could vie for a higher seed here, depending on how they do, and since London should lose to Dallas, in a vacuum at least, we'll see what happens there. So Houston could secure a top 4 spot, meaning they get a better seed. But yeah, every other game, like Houston should beat New York, Shock should beat Toronto, Atlanta should beat Paris, Gladiators should beat Mayhem, Dallas should beat London, Boston should beat New York. These matchups feel very scripted at this point because we've seen such consistently poor performance from the bottom 3 teams, the New York, the Paris, I guess not Florida, but Gladiators are looking like the best team in the league. So, I don't know. Vancouver has a chance. There's a little bit of hopium. Other than that, Houston's trying to vie for a top seed, but I want London to hold that spot, so I'm going to put Boston over Houston for that matchup. But yeah, other than that, these seems like they should be cut and dry games.
The London-Dallas is the most interesting to me, because I feel like Dallas is totally a team that's like, what if we ran dive? And
dive should win against London. Like if they ever get a map that's not King's Row, like London shouldn't be able to stand. And this is like from a London fan. Like I love how much London's getting away with, but they shouldn't be. You know, like
yeah.
Like just straight up, like they shouldn't be doing this well. And Dallas is their one hard opponent this whole split. Their one like top 4 opponent from this entire split. So Dallas should put them back in their place, at least if we're following the script for the Overwatch League. But yeah, if London takes that win, that's a spicy one. And then that would secure London as a top 4.
Does Dallas take the... Okay, you know what? Fuck the predictions. Does Dallas take the Rush Mirror?
No, I don't think Fearless would ever play Ryan. Not against London, at least. Like even on King's Row, like I feel like they at most would play like a Doomfist or Ball Dive.
Yeah. Okay. I'm very that's a game I'm really interested, because that could be a really exciting upset. What about you, Jack, Artemmys? Anything that you think is going to be like kind of out of the ordinary for the weekend's matches, or anyone you're hoping is going to come out and pound?
What do you think?
I don't.
Because I know you're avid follower.
Do you guys have favorite teams in the league?
You know, I used to have a lot of love for the Valiant before things happened. So
it's a Valiant kind of year.
Yeah,
it is. It's a decent year for the Valiant.
It's more and more of a you know, I give a lot of my love to the social media managers of all the teams. That's kind of who my love ends up going to, who has the spicier memes that week. So I'm not for certain where it falls this week, but I'll leave predictions to you, babe.
I don't know why. That's like where
they do have that spicy meme ceiling pretty much capped for the most part. Anyone else ringing true in your ears?
No, it's the...
I mean, I want to see, if Atlanta is nice and does it twice. We can see if maybe that's an option. Since nothing matters this week, might as well replay it, right? See if they can pull the same thing with Paris and just make the whole at risk more. So I mean, that definitely is an option on the table. Is this the week that Paris pulls the win out because Atlanta forgets where the payload is? Like, this might be Paris's chance to just like play the objective and win. Well, only time will tell. That's what I say every cast. Only time will tell whether or not these teams will will meme their way into victory. I guess nothing matters. Possibly, maybe, who knows? But hopefully, it's some interesting Overwatch at very least.
I think it will be like it's not going to affect the standings obviously, but I think as far as like the mental game goes, it could really affect because like you don't want to come out as Dallas and get beat up by London heading into this tournament, things like that. I think from like a player standpoint, the kind of like the vibes, you don't want to be going in with like just got shit kicked by Hottie. You need immaculate vibes going into this tournament.
Well, see, that's the funny thing, because that is not the vibe that at all. Because I see teams so many times that will literally tank themselves until the last possible minute, like complete nosedive if they can to oblivion, and then pull it right back up at the last second because they know they're that good.
That's the show. Hey, maybe that's Vancouver this year. We'll never know.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe that's it. They know that it's just not time to pop yet. So we'll see.
You know what I just realized about the London Dallas match? Mm-hmm. So they have equal records right now. They're both 8-3 this season. Even if London beats Dallas because of the bonus points from the previous tournament, they won't overtake them in the standings. So London would be 9-3, and Dallas would be 8-4, and it would still be Dallas in third, London in fourth.
Can we just bask in the glory?
Can we really can't even do better if you try.
Even if you win, you lose.
Can we just bask in the glory of London having the same record as Dallas?
What a year. It's like we're in season 1. Actually, Dallas was way worse than season 1, weren't we?
But like, how is that a thing? How? Yeah, I don't know. Coaching, fantastic.
It's literally coming down. Teams that are more adaptable. That I think was funnest watching, like teams being created this season, which is like I haven't paid a lot during, like I said earlier, during the season as teams have kind of been moving around. But in the early drafts, like teams getting put together, it was so neat seeing like literally the built-in flexibility because they were like, we have no idea what we're so we're just gonna be ready for any.
Well, that was really interesting about London, where everyone was like, oh yeah, we got to make sure that we have like 2 players that can play 16 people each, and then London was like, we're gonna run rush.
We're gonna pick one comp,
stick to it.
Yeah, we're gonna get really good at it.
Decently well. Because we know everybody else is going to be absolute chaos. Hey, that's not a half bad plan. And it's the numbers are working for them. So
yeah, they have the same record as Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to be the best. You just got to be better than the worst. That's all that matters. I'm very excited for a tournament where London has the same record as Dallas coming into the weekend, but. Pretty wild. I think it was an interesting time for Overwatch League, and we can wrap things up now. So thank you so much for joining us, CaptJack and Artemmys. You can find them on Twitter at Captain_Jack87 and Artemmys Onyx, and Artemmys is Symmetra spelled backwards, and then ONYX.
I did not realize that.
It's so
That's
clever.
awesome.
No.
It's so clever.
No.
It's Symmetra spelled backwards, but it's like still a real word. It's so clever.
That's cool.
Well, anything's a real word if you just believe.
Yeah.
Just gotta try hard enough.
But like Artemmys is like a mythological word. That's what's so interesting about it.
I mean, nothing gets better than I forget which grand finals it was last year in the EU. The team now known as Yeah, where they literally had one of their players type out a random string of letters, and that was their submitted team name to game battles, pronounced if Gua Agaya Wagaga Owa.
Yep.
Oh my god!
I had to say that on broadcast multiple times. and that's why I still remember it, because that's how hard I had to for that one match.
Oh, I thought Roadhog rides
like a rap god style cast, and you just like throw that in there nonchalantly midway through.
It was
good lord.
You know, the scene is very interesting. That's all I gotta say. Anytime that people ask me like what I do, I'm like, I do interesting things sometimes.
Yeah. It's always an interesting time. So, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thanks Tikatee, and thank you CaptJack and Artemmys. That was a lot of fun. That was one of our longer shows, and it went by so fast. So, like, thank you so much. That was a great conversation, and we learned a lot. And that's what it's all about, right?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. We learned more than Washington, apparently. All right, that's all.
Okay, that's it. Let's stop one last Washington burn. We're cutting it. Thanks everybody, and thank you everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for in the chat.
Yeah, thank you guys.